union, immigrant rights, and civil liberties organizations that have come together to speak with one voice against the current E-Verify proposal of our Congress. We are part of a diverse, broad-based group that is taking action nationwide to ensure that Congress does not pass or make mandatory a cumbersome and flaw-ridden electronic employment verification system. We're united here to warn Oregonians that requiring all businesses to use E-Verify will hurt Oregon workers, harm Oregon businesses, and make it harder for economic recovery. It is especially important that we stand united today, now as the latest attempt to make E-Verify mandatory nationwide works its way through the U.S. House of Representatives. And without further ado, and better understand how this affects us here in Oregon, I'll pass it off to our first speaker, Kevin Diaz of the ACLU.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Diaz, as you said, the legal director for the ACLU of Oregon. The ACLU of Oregon is here today to oppose the mandatory use of what everyone acknowledges is a flawed and invasive E-Verify system. If HB 2164 passes, for the first time in history, employers will be required to run an internet-based computer check against a massive, error-prone database before any American will start a new job. If a worker's information in the E-Verify database happens to be incorrect, that worker can't start work and can't start getting paid until the problem is resolved. In these tough economic times, this system represents yet one more barrier between a worker and a new job. Everyone, even the U.S. government, acknowledges that data errors in the system will harm lawful workers by delaying start dates or denying employment altogether. According to estimates of the E-Verify error rate drawn directly from the Department of Homeland Security's own reports, at least 80,000 Americans lost out on a new job last year because of a mistake in the government database. That's 80,000 workers that were seriously affected by the current non-mandatory system used by approximately 250,000 employers. If E-Verify becomes mandatory across the country for Americans and 6 to 7 million employers, at least 1.2 million workers would have to go to DHS or to the Social Security Administration to correct their records. If you happen to be one of the at least 1.2 million workers harmed by a data error, don't look to E-Verify for any meaningful due process protections. The system for correcting errors is a mess. Both the Department of Justice and DHS have identified problems with the error notification process that haven't been resolved. Employees have difficulty understanding the complicated notification letters, among other things. To make matters worse, records are not all in the same place and there is no centralized form for fixing the records. Some workers have to write to many different federal agencies to request records and find those errors. According to the U.S. Government Accountability Office, in 2009, the average response time for such requests was a staggering 104 days. 104 days. That's a long time for an employee to wait for a paycheck and a long time for an employer to hold out filling a position. Such delays represent lost wages, lost productivity, and lost tax revenue. We need Congress to come up with a comprehensive, sensible solution to the undocumented worker dilemma that doesn't insert the government into every hiring decision made by every employer across the country. We urge Congress to abandon this flawed approach because E-Verify creates roadblocks for people to work and puts U.S. citizens and lawful residents at risk of losing their jobs.
My name is Javier Lara. On behalf of PECUN's 6,000 members who work from farm labor, nurseries, and reforestation, we stand in a strong opposition to the E-Verify bill, H.R. 2164. The bill will create serious problems to our economy and do very little to create jobs. The truth of the matter is that E-Verify will not stop employers from hiring undocumented workers, immigrants. In fact, it will drive employers and workers further into the underground economy. The consequences of this phenomenon, the underground cash economy, will hurt everyone. The reality will also put workers into a scenario where they are more easily exploited. And the government will lose billions of dollars of tax revenue. To highlight this issue, the Congressional Budget Office has stated that the U.S. economy will lose $17 billion over 10 years in federal tax revenue because more workers and employers will move into the cash economy. On top of that, the E-Verify system often fails to detect undocumented immigrants who they check through the system. One study found that 54% of undocumented workers checked by E-Verify were only confirmed as a work authorized. This bill creates serious problems to our economy and hurt working people. Hundreds of thousands of agricultural workers will be at risk of losing their jobs, putting the $3 billion agricultural industry at risk and jeopardizing the food security system we know today in America. Again, to emphasize, E-Verify will hurt the economy by driving more workers off the books, and it won't stop the hiding of undocumented immigrants. We at the CUN support a more comprehensive approach to immigration and not one based on enforcement that harms workers, businesses, and the community. We call on all members of the Oregon House delegation to aggressively work against H.R. 2164 and strongly oppose to the bill when it comes up for a vote. Thank you.
My name is Promise King. I am the Executive Director of Oregon League of Minority Voters. We are a statewide organization and going national. We're the only league of minority voters in the nation. We are here to represent the voice of common sense that you just heard, from ACLU to VAS to other voice of common sense you will hear. The issue of immigration is complicated and complex. E-verification complicates it even further. This law as proposed will really do damage to our conversation around immigration as it relates to families and business growth in this time and this our economy. The e-verification will also undermine our fundamental core value as Americans because it's divisive in nature and pits business against farmers, farmers against business, employers against employees, employees against government. We don't need this. What we need at this time is a comprehensive look and comprehensive approach to immigration that respect families, respect business, respect jobs, respect our core values as American, and respect the prosperity of this nation. E-verification, as proposed now, actually decimate and create division among our families and employees. We at Oregon League of Minority Voters don't think this proposal is about immigration reform. We think this is about special interests driving their special interests around our conversation. E-verification as proposed right now really does not serve our conversation of progressive immigration reform. Rather, what it does is to create more complication and complexity. And we ask that our delegation reject, our Oregon delegation reject this in entirety. we want to thank those who support this effort to drive e-verification out of our conversation. Thank you, Frank.
I'm Jeff Stone. I'm the Executive Director for the Oregon Association of Nurseries. I suppose I'm the business representative here this morning. There are very few issues that can bring faith, labor, and business all together, and E-Verify is one of them. This has very real economic consequence, and that's what I'm going to be talking to you this morning about. Enforcement only provisions like this is not what this country needs, not what Oregon business needs in order to try to help our economic recovery. Agriculture in particular has been very much opposed against E-Verify, especially when it is by itself. We need comprehensive reform, one that deals with those who are already here, a future flow of workers, and a way to hold employers accountable. We want all three. But to have an enforcement-only bill will only serve to harm the Oregon economy and the nation. If you want to know firsthand about how real this is, just ask Georgia. Georgia had a 30 to 50% labor shortage this last time for their harvest, with a $300 million hit to their economy just since the spring. So it has very real economic consequence. I remind you, because we hear the Congress talking about wanting to create jobs to help this economy recover. But issues such as a standalone E-Verify bill, and even with Congressman Lamar Smith's new ag visa program, that it does not help Oregon. So I would urge our congressional delegation, and we've made this clear, that Oregon business does not support any activity that would harm our ability to employ people and continue doing business. So I am proud to be here with our faith and labor friends. It is not something that we're used to doing, but we are happy to show uniformity against this.
Ignacio Páramo, and I'm the director of the American Work Center. One of the programs of Both Workers' Rights Education Project. Both Workers' Rights Education Project is a worker-led organization that empowers immigrants and their neighbors to gain control of their working conditions through organizing leadership development and community education. Their neighbors are a very diverse group, including immigrants from all over, U.S. citizens, African Americans, veterans, and Samoans. Other neighbors have a common goal to be able to work in order to feed their families. In the labor community, we're very concerned with the new E-Verify legislation. If that passed, it will be disastrous. There will be disaster for all workers if we survive our communities. E-Verify will force many workers to work in the informal economy where they are more vulnerable to exploitation and discrimination. This system makes workers more vulnerable when giving them the right to organize. We need our legislators to offer sensitive, comprehensive ideas for job creation and immigration reform rather than attacking and scapegoating workers. Here at the Work Center, we can protect workers against wage violation. We know that E-Verify that drives more employers and more into the underground economy. Then more workers will get abused by their employers. Workers won't get paid the minimum wage, or they might not get paid at all. That hurts everyone because it forces honest employers to compete with abusive employers who cut costs by exploiting workers. Thank you.
It's hard to imagine why, at this time, where Congress would even consider anything that could further bring obstacles to families and workers being able to find the employment they need to support themselves and their families. This isn't a burden just on the undocumented or the very poor, it's on everyone. I know families where parents are trying to support children who are adults and can't get into the job market. We see small business owners struggling to work to make their business survive in this economy, or people who take the initiative to have a startup business, trying to make it work. There's a dignity to the human person that we believe in, and that includes the right to work, to be able to support themselves and contributing members of the community. And when we look at legislation that's designed with such a narrow focus, but which can have such broad ramifications, it's time for us as a society, as a community, to stop and think about what we're doing. We need to support workers, we need to support our businesses, and we need to get the economy moving again for the sake of all of us.
And see from what's been presented today that E-Verify is bad for Oregon workers, it's bad for Oregon business, it's bad for our communities, and it's bad for our economy. And that is why we are united in calling upon Oregon's congressional delegation to oppose the E-Verify bill that is coming in front of them. I would like to take just a moment before we wrap up to thank the broad-based organizations that came together in support of today's event. Today's co-sponsors include Bo's Workers' Rights Education Project, Cocoon, Northwest Workers' Justice Project, SEIU Local 49, Main Street Alliance of Oregon, ACLU of Oregon, the National Lawyers Guild, CALSA, Oregon's Immigrant Rights Coalition, Portland Jobs for Justice, American Friends Services Committee, Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition, and the Oregon Youth Sanctuary Movement. And I'd also like to thank the folks that have showed up here today in support. I'd like to thank Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, Jobs with Justice, Oregon Youth Sanctuary Movement, Northwest Workers' Justice Project, and I'm sure I'm probably forgetting somebody. But thank you all again.